Interesting. The live stream still image has got the wrong aeroplane on it. I'm just setting up the live stream, by the way, so bear with me for a moment. I'll fix the still image on the live stream after we finish, I guess. Otherwise it will be a bit silly. I'm just going to put the link into Twitter to let people know that we're doing the flight. So bear with me. Of course, these famous content creators have a team of people doing this for them. I'm kind of a one-man army, so you'll have to hang on for a moment. Okay, that's that done. I guess we need to get the airplane up and running. And I'll try and keep in touch with people commenting on the live stream as I'm flying. I'll attempt to anyway. Okay, so head tracking back on. Go and jump inside the aeroplane. So we're in the Cessna C140, a nice quirky little aeroplane that will be a nightmare. But we're not going to worry about that too much. Let's just take the yokes off so we can get the airplane up and running. I have to remember how to work this first. So we need the master battery switch first. Beacon light before we start the engine. We are going to go fully rich mixture. Now, where are the fuel shut-off levers in this thing? So at the moment, okay, can we not actually... Okay, you just have to click around the edge of it. Okay, so it's either left or right tank. Okay, that's fine. We just have to keep an eye on it while we're flying. I've already calibrated the altimeter. We won't need carb heat. It's a lovely day. We've got mixture on fully rich. Parking brake is on. I don't believe this has flaps, but we'll check that in a moment. Okay, let's see if we can start the engine, shall we? So we'll just check around. What have I missed? Oh, I probably need to prime it, don't I, knowing this thing. Do you know what? Rather than mess around, I'm going to go into the accessibility, because a lot of this stuff isn't labelled in this old airplane. We're going to turn on tooltips, so it will give us the name of things. So what's this one over here? That's the modern radios. We don't need modern radios. Secure aircraft. That's the tie downs. And that was the primer. Okay, so how do we unlock the primer? Anybody remember? Okay, it helps if you have the magnetos. Let's go and try and start it again, shall we? So why wouldn't it let me unlock the primer? That's interesting. So navigation lights, strobe lights, master avionics switch. Let's just check the volumes. It's going to be incredibly loud, isn't it? Let's turn that down a bit so you can hear me over the top of it, hopefully. So we're at Alberni Valley at the moment, and we're going to double back on ourselves, go on Alpha Taxiway, take off runway 30, and then we're going to head for Sproat Lake and go along the valley and follow the road down through to Kennedy Lake, and that will take us over to Tofino for our first destination. So, off the parking brake. Where's that van going? I'm going to have to turn my own volume down because I can't hear a thing in the cockpit. It's so loud, it's crazy. I think I might have to just turn the simulator down on the mixer of the computer itself. And then turn it back up in here. It's pretty loud to you anyway, so there we go. So onto the runway. It's a bit of a crosswind today, not much though. Should we meddle with the time of day to make it look pretty? Because we can. Okay, so we're just climbing out from Alberni Valley. Let's leap around and have a little look at the airfield before we carry on. So I'll turn the head tracking back on. I might do most of this flight from outside, you know, because the noise is going to drive me around a twist. So there's the lake, I think, right behind us that we're going to follow. Actually no, it's off of this side, so it's the next one over. Off of our right wing. The Sprout Lake. So that's where we're heading. So we'll say goodbye to Alberni. I guess what we could do, just looking at the settings, is we'll tune the sound of the engine completely out of it. So it's not too annoying. It is a bit like being in a baked bean tin in this aeroplane. So I'm turning head tracking off so I can look at the live stream comments. Ah. Do I have a second monitor for OBS? No, I just tab to it to look at it. I only have the main computer that runs Flight Sim. I do everything on the one screen. It helps enormously having the one screen. If I'm explaining how something works, it means I can just tab through the programs using Alt and Tab on the keyboard to bring them to the foreground to show people what I'm looking at. So if I want to go and look at LittleNavMap, for example, I can very quickly and easily. So you can see we're just coming over Sprout Lake, so we've got Taylor Arm Provincial Park will be down here somewhere. So we're going to be flying the valleys for the next little while. See traffic on the road down there. There's a few pylons in the trees. So in this aircraft we get fuel gauges on the wing roots, which is quite cool. It's got that horrible 1970s patterning on the roof where if you stare at it for long enough you lose your vision. You start to see double. Well, it's 1960s probably, not 70s. Okay, just having a look at the live stream comments. Island Sarah says that's my favourite swimming spot. So we have a local watching the live stream. That's very cool. So if we go and put the head tracking back on, if we go outside the aeroplane, we can actually see it a bit easier, I guess. So there's a load of jetties down here. So there we go, swimming spot. Sunset Island Resort is coming up on the far bank in a moment. So that's actually called swimming spot where all the jetties are. That's fantastic. So Tim Miller says, what level of detail is this aeroplane compared to a Coronado? I'll show you. It's pretty good. It's made by Aeroplane Heaven, and they're usually pretty good. So it's very much of its era. It's an old aeroplane. So if I turn the head tracking on, then it'll it'll move around a little bit more. So inside, it's very good as well. So, you know, when you look around the cabin, it's you get lots of different liveries. This is one of the more gaudy, kind of bright, late 60s variants, I'm guessing. So, I don't know if we can... haven't got any luggage. Okay, so we're making our way up Sprout Lake, was it? Yeah. And we're going to follow the road into the next valley. I'm not going to try and pronounce the place name along the way. I'm going to try to avoid any hills as well. So if we move ourselves around the cockpit slightly, we can sit in the middle. We're going to sit in between the seats. It's a bench seat, so we'll get comfortable, get the best view. Okay. I may change aeroplanes when we get to the next airfield because this is painful. It seemed like a good idea at the time, grabbing the Cessna 140, but yeah, it's so slow, it's untrue. We'll grab something a bit quicker. If you've got any suggestions in the comments, I'm happy to load up a different aeroplane. Maybe the 182RG. That's pretty quick in a straight line, isn't it? And it sounds nice as well. Maybe that's what we should do, different aeroplane for each leg. So how fast is this? I think on paper it will cruise at about 105. I'm absolutely thrashing it and doing 120 miles an hour, which is probably what, 110 knots, maybe? 105 knots. I think on paper it's 105. But yeah, obviously the indicated airspeed is in miles an hour. So we'll do this first leg in this aeroplane and then we'll swap aeroplanes to something a bit quicker. We could go into dev mode, couldn't we, to avoid going back to the main menu. Although saying that, I haven't got a flight plan programmed, so it wouldn't take long to jump to the main menu and back in again. Okay, so we're just approaching the turn-off, and then we head on through the valley. Should we do this from inside the aeroplane? Maybe we should go back to live time just to see what it looks like. So obviously it's middle of the day, so we've got the sun overhead. So the mountain we can see to our left there. Now is that... It's difficult to say, isn't it? They're not all... Adder Mountain is off to our left, so I'm guessing that was the one we could see. This aeroplane doesn't like crosswinds, does it? It jitters about. Mind you, it doesn't help that we're going flat out all the time, but having to get through these passes one way or another. So the mountain we're going directly towards, is that Pogo Mountain? Possibly. Okay, so do we go... I presumably we go left to follow the road. Yep. Shall we put up this in minimal mode? Windows, open window layout, minimal, and put it up in the corner. There we go. And then go into here, taskbar behaviors, hide the taskbar. So then we can have the map in view while we're flying. There's the sound, let's have a look. So yeah, I'm inclined to turn it down even further so you can't hear it as badly. It's a pretty awful engine sound, isn't it? DC3 is a pretty good idea. What changes would I like to see? Multi-threading. So when it's loading assets in the background, it doesn't bring the sim to its knees. That's the major change I would like to see. Multi-threading in terms of loading the assets, so it doesn't affect the pipeline for rendering. Whether that's possible is another question. I'm going to come back off the throttle ever so slightly so it's not screaming all the time. The only issue if we use a DC3 is going to be full stop landings. I guess if we're only doing touch and goes we'll be fine now. And it's a fairly big runway at our final destination. But yeah, that might be good fun actually using the DC3. It's got that thumpy engine noise, even. I guess we could go with something like the Otter is very good, isn't it? Haven't flown the Otter for a while. Okay, so we need to continue on down and then we follow across Kennedy Lake into Tofino. DC6. The Otter would be more sensible for this sort of route, to be honest. You know, island hopping, or sorry, not island hopping, but jumping in and out of little airfields and flying through steep valleys. It's a shame that the AI hasn't picked up that these should have trees on the banks, isn't it? Otherwise that'd be quite cool through here. Doesn't always pick it up. Oh, some bits and pieces of cloud in these valleys. Interesting. Okay, so this should open up onto the lake in a moment. Famous last words. Should we try and climb up over the top of this spit of land here? Oops, put my head through the side of the fuselage there. Yeah, here we go, look, here's the lake. So this is Kennedy Lake. It's looking very calm down there, isn't it? Should we go and descend down to the water and have a look at it? I guess if we stay to this side, it's more on our route, isn't it? There's our shadow. I don't want to tempt fate with touching the wheels in. I'm not playing those games today, I'm afraid. As tempting as it is. Because I don't know how this aeroplane will react to it. Should we try and jump over this little outcrop here? Transfer some of this airspeed into altitude. This thing climbs like an anvil doesn't. It's not great, is it? Okay, so this is in the UK we would call this a tarn, like a puddle, a giant puddle in the mountain, or a lake, but where the water has been captured by the rock. Okay, so we should be able to see Tofino shortly. It's just the other side of these hills, I guess. About 12 miles away, maybe 10 miles. And then we switch aeroplanes, thankfully. This airplane doesn't like being thrashed this much, does it? They're going absolutely flat out. What's the opinion of the Cessna 195? Which one is the Cessna 195? Is that the business liner? Just trying to remember. Yeah, it's really, really well done. It's made by Coronado, but it was licensed into Microsoft, I think, for one of the local legends. Okay, so we want to be going left. So let's put the head tracking back on. We should see Tofino soon. It's not far away. About 5 miles out, 6 miles away. So looking at the wind, what's the wind doing on the ground at Tofino? 180 degrees, 4 knots, so we'll go for runway 16. Yeah, we'll just approach and circle around the airport to get to it. So let's zoom in here and show you it properly. So we're just coming across here, and then we'll just pull straight in runway 16, and then once we are stopped on the ground, we will land. Oh, sorry, we will change aeroplanes. Can you imagine trying to navigate around these islands and valleys before the likes of GPS came along? The local knowledge must have been so difficult. Although I suppose you can look at, you know, signpost kind of mountains and hills that are more recognisable. A bit like when you look at coastal charts, oh look, we got some company. A bit like when you look at coastal charts and you get hand-drawn illustrations of the coastline with, you know, hills and things indicated with like pen and ink drawings. You could do the same around here. Oh no, it's the wrong way. So we're going to head off to the right hand side. We don't need much room at all to land a Cessna 140, so we'll just aim for the end of the runway and then sweep in and land. So this is Tofino. finally get this leg done and dusted. Change aeroplanes. I like all the little details, like the microphone for the radio. It's very nicely done. Okay, so where's the actual terminal? The wind's only a few knots, so we could land on the taxiway, do a Harrison Ford and land on the taxiway. Because it is quite a long way around otherwise to taxi in. Oh, there's aeroplanes parked everywhere though on the taxiways. Although, actually no, they're okay. Yeah, I'm going to land on this taxiway. Breaking all sorts of laws here. Side slip it to force it to slow down. Okay, let's park over next to the temporary building over here. Okay, so I'm going to jump back out to the main menu of Flight Simulator and we're going to go and pick a different aeroplane. So we have reached Tofino. So if we notice where we are, we'll come to a parking spot fairly nearby, say number 17 over here. Now there's an approach you don't often see. Okay, so if we turn the simulator sound back up, and I'll turn the sound up myself as well. So what are we going to choose? We said the Otter. No, oh, that's the departure airport. I'm being a numpty, aren't I? So there's the 195 that we were talking about. I haven't flown the Kodiak for ages. Oh, it's decision time, isn't it? The tri-motor would be, yeah, it's even slower than the airplane we were in. Is it DHC? I'm trying to remember the code number. Here we go, DHC2 Beaver. So if we go for one of those, There's one with a Canadian colour scheme, isn't it? That one. That will do. So then we want to take off from CYAZ Tofino. And we'll take off from, or start from the parking area. Shouldn't take too long to load up. Oh, that's a shame. I'm looking at Tim's comment there about the T-37. No idea what would cause it to crash because it's been stable for me. Maybe some other add-ons you've got don't agree with it. Something like that, maybe. I don't know. So, ready to fly. First thing we'll do is get rid of the person in the cabin next to us so we don't have to keep looking across at them. Our weather can stay the same. Weight and balance, that's what I meant to do. So we'll just zero out the co-pilot weight, which, yep, that's made them disappear. All good. Get the yoke off for a moment. I have to remember how to do this now. So we need the fuel selector. We'll put it on center tank. We'll probably need some fuel actually before we get started. Let's go and fill it up to 80%, which should be good for the rest of the day. And mixture to rich. Propeller to max RPM. We tighten up the oil filler cap so it doesn't rattle. I remembered that bit. So we've got the master battery switch down here, and the alternator can go straight on. We'll put on the beacon light before we start the engine. We probably need the fuel boost for a few moments. Magnetos have to go to both, and then crank the throttle open, make sure the parking brake is on. It is, and it's very quiet, isn't it? But that's not such a bad thing when you're sat in the airplane for ages. Nav lights can come on. I'll put the strobe light on there. I'm not enormously worried about that. So let's put the radios on. Okay, should we put the yoke? Whoops, didn't need to do that. Put the yoke back in. Yeah, this is a much nicer airplane to go exploring in, isn't it? We've even got a first aid kit, look. Let's see what the volume levels are looking like. So, could even do with turning up a little bit so you can hear the engine. I'll turn it down just a tad. Okay. Yeah, that's a nicer sound. And we have a Canadian colour scheme, which is great. So we're going to need about 50 yards to take off. Which way's the wind? We're almost going into the wind. Oh, that's a shame, isn't it? So let's turn and use this last little bit of runway here. Okay, full throttle. straight with the rudder, pull back, and we're in the air. No flaps required. This thing is like going up in an elevator, isn't it? It's fantastic. Let's turn the head tracking back on. Press F12 to centre it. There we go. So RPM can come back. Doesn't need to be anything like that fast. And we're on our way. So let's have a look at the map and see where we've just taken off from. So we're wanting to go 24 degrees back up over these canyons. So let's turn left then. Got the whiskey compass up here. We've also got a gyro compass here, which is a bit easier to read. So pick your valley, basically. Oh, should go and turn the GPS on. That might be helpful at some point. And this does have an autopilot, so we could climb out and enjoy the views from a few thousand feet. How long is this leg? Let's have a look. So it's 50 miles. So rather than fly the valleys this time, let's continue climbing out. So we're at 1,200 feet at the moment. Have we got windows, open window layout, default? Yes, we have got the altitude plot, so we need to get to 5,000 basically to clear the hills. So let's just level this out for a moment. Not going exactly the right direction at the moment, but close enough. 24 degrees we eventually want. So on the that's to adjust the entire compass. We just want to move the heading marker to 24 degrees if I can do it without the airplane buffeting around and moving the mouse, which we can't. There we go. So autopilot. How are we doing on RPM? RPM's good. We're going to max out the manifold pressure though to make sure that we can maintain this climb rate. So we are accelerating, which is good. Vertical speed is maintained at 1,000 feet a minute. It's actually just above, which is kind of odd, but there we go. Have a look on the map. And we're going exactly the right direction. And we've got a small tailwind, hardly anything to speak of though. So we're going back to Courtney on the other coast. On the way across, will we see, it's just all wilderness I think on the way across, so it makes more sense just to fly this altitude. So we'll go window open, minimal, and put this back in the corner. You can see where we are. Okay, I'm going to turn off the head tracking for a moment so I can read the live stream comments. Have I flown the DC-6? Yes. How does it compare to real life? I don't know. Because I've not flown a real one. Oh, God, sorry, that's aimed at Russell. The DC-6 is great fun in Flight Simulator. It's very much you have to stick to procedures with the engines to look after them, which is much more like, you know, the real world. It's got this thing called an automated flight engineer though, which is, he's the most accident-prone, dangerous person I've ever seen control an aeroplane. He sounds like he knows what he's doing, but then you suddenly notice one of the engine needles will start to deviate, and you think, well, thanks a lot, mate. You just lunched the engine for us. Okay, let's go back inside and have a quick look at these. Should we program the route in so we can see what we're doing? I'll just come off the head tracking to do it, because we're going to go and focus on the GPS for a moment. Right, so flight plan, focus. So we've just departed from Tofino, CYAZ. Helps if you can type. And we're going to Courtney, CAH3. Following that, we're going to Campbell, CYBL. This has got this bug look where it loses focus of where it should be next. They've never fixed it. Woss next, CAK4. Then we've got two close together, so we've got Alert Bay, CYAL. CYAL. Enter. And then Port McNeil, CAT5. Then we're going up the coast to Port Hardy, and that's where we finish. So that's CYZT, or Charlie Yankee Zulu Tango. Charlie Yankee Zulu Tango. Enter. Press flight plan again, and zoom out a bit, and we can see the route now. And we can then go and put this on the first page of the first page group, and that gives you the numbers, which is really cool. So we've got nice visual reference now to look at in the aeroplane. Head tracking back on. How are we doing for RPMs? Good. Manifold pressure's good. We could go a bit faster actually. So we're at, interesting. What's going on with that? Where has the needle gone for the thousands? What's going on? I guess it is right, isn't it? It just hasn't got a thousands. It's got the tens of thousands needle. There seems to be a needle missing. Anyway, not going to worry. Maybe we should. Okay, now we can just admire the views and try and spot some of the waypoints, or not waypoints, the points of interest along the way, so hill names. Or so let's zoom back out here. Let's have a look. There aren't really any named hills in the Google map, at least. You'd probably need sectionals. I don't know if I've got the sectionals. Let's have a look. Open window layout, default. The US ones won't cover Canada, will they? So, yeah, it's only going to cover, we're just off the corner of it, which is a shame, because these have got some of the place names. Oh well. We have got we've got this Google Maps satellite view, which is a bit different. What about topo maps? OpenStreetMap, Open Topo Map. What's that going to give us? It's got lots of detail, but not really many place names. So it hasn't got visual reference points. But it is quite neat to look at. Okay, maybe we'll just admire the view, instead of obsessing over where we are. So the lake we're just about to fly over is the Great Central Lake that goes back down to where we started off from, Alberni. We need a couple of degrees left on the autopilot before we go too much further, so let's go and sort that out. Have we got any radio beacons? Yeah, there's one over here, look. So, although this is a vortex, so I'm not sure if the airplane will do this, or TACAN, sorry. 110.4. Let's see if it will behave itself. You never know what they've got in each airplane in this simulator. 110. Switch it to active. Of course, we're going to have to switch it, although we're not using GPS. We're not navigating by GPS, so yeah, it hasn't picked it up. Although, what would the range be on it? Does it say here? 130 miles. Yeah, so this isn't going to pick up TACAN, it's only going to pick up VORs. But we could go back to GPS and actually use the GPS, I guess. So if we go and switch to GPS and then go to nav mode down here, it's armed it, but it's still on heading mode. We'd have to turn the heading across the track to intercept. So if we do that, what we're doing is forcing the aeroplane onto the track, and then it will switch to nav mode when it intercepts automatically. Well, that's the plan anyway. So Chattanooga saying, what about the balloon ride? I've never looked at the balloons in the simulator. I'm not sure why. That's a bit strange, isn't it? Is that missing scenery over there? That's missing textures, isn't it? Maybe we'll look this way then. Camera view a little bit closer to the front. I thought I'd fixed the keyboard. Oh, maybe I changed the keyboard mapping the other day. I thought I'd fixed the keyboard to allow me to translate up and down. I don't think I have. I don't want to disrupt the flight to go meddling in the key mappings, so I'm going to leave it alone. So this valley we are passing is down this way. Does it have a name? This Elsie Lake is in the valley, but I don't think the valley has a name, or certainly not on this scenery. Let's go back to Google Terrain. Does that have it? No. So maybe it doesn't have a name, it's just a floodplain, isn't it? So we should see the aeroplane should have switched to nav mode, and it has. Yeah, so we've intercepted the GPS track, and it's locked onto the track. So we're coming out towards the coast. You can see mainland Canada just across the water there. So does the waterway have a name? And it's Strait of Georgia, isn't it? And I guess that continues all the way up into the islands. Then you've got the Johnstone Strait further north. So we're approaching Courtney. So I should really... I guess we need to clear this hill before we descend, unless we fly along the water. Go along Comox Lake, maybe? Should we do that? So let's go and go back to heading mode. And drop us back down to 2,000 feet altitude. And that, and come down at 1,000 feet a minute. So you can see the altitude's now dropping, which is good. We need to go a bit more. Oops, wrong dial. Always doing that. So what we're doing here is following the lake round towards our next waypoint. We're not going to bother with Comox. It's an international airport, I think. Yeah, it's got 10,000 feet runway. We're going too fast. So you can see that you can hear the airplane complaining, the airframe. So we're going to come off the throttle a bit and let it slow down. Getting up near its maximum airspeed. It was starting to creak and groan a little bit. Can we see the airfield yet? Probably not. About 10 miles out. Or 8 miles maybe. So let's begin the right turn. So what actual angle do we need? .45. We're still descending back there to 2,000 feet. Let's look out the window. And now we're going to be following some of these small settlements on the way up the coast for the next few legs. We won't be going back into the hills, I don't think. Let's have a quick look. Oh, tell a lie. Once we leave Campbell, we'll fly over through the hills, or over the hills to Woss. And then probably follow the lake up here. What's that one? A Nimpkish Lake. Okay, where are we? So I'm going to come off the autopilot now. There's no point using it for this. The mist on the water, it's cold, isn't it? Can you see that? There's a interesting collection of, is that just trees or is something going on in front of us? I think it's the way the shadows are falling on the ends of the buildings. Can't quite see it. Someone's going for the the lip record in front of us. Good luck to them. I wouldn't like to see the stress fractures on the wing roots when they're finished. There's a farm down there, isn't it? Okay, so can we see the runway? Off of our left wing somewhere. Okay, there it is. You can see it on the edge of the water. It's just over here. Okay, what's the wind doing on the ground down there? So, it's quite strong, isn't it? Gusting 18, oh my word, 340 degrees. So we're coming in from the right side. It's just pretty windy. So I'm going to do a bit of a zigzag pattern to lose some speed on the way in. Flaps are out. Let's just side slip a little bit to lose a bit more height. That'll do. Could have done without the wind. Look at it kicking up into the air with the wind. It's quite funny. Right, let's get back in the air. Safer in the air, isn't it? So get rid of the flaps, get some speed on, and we're back in the air. So what's parked down here today? Oh, we can't really see, don't have much visibility backwards in the Beaver, do you? That mist is awesome, isn't it? Okay, so I think we just follow the coast now. It's got 20 miles up to Campbell River. So we've obviously got the GPS to help us out now as well. Now we've got the route programmed in. So let's have a look at the manifold pressure, open it up. And I guess it would make sense now to go back to the minimal map so we can do some, I'll point out some of the places that we're flying near. So before we leave here, let's go and have a little look. Lazzo is where this airport is, off of our right side. That's over there on the peninsula. Turn on labels, see how many people are around. The answer to that is not many. Unless the labels aren't working, of course. Oh no, there are people around, just not many, not on this server. Okay. So let's turn the head tracking off for a moment. So while we're making our way up to Campbell, grab a quick coffee. So if I just scoot this round to the appropriate direction, autopilot on, heading mode, altitude hold. We want to go a few more degrees to the left. Right. I'm going to go and grab a quick coffee. I'll be back in a moment. I should be back in time to arrive at Campbell. I'm going to turn the view this way so you get a better view of what's coming. Okay, I have coffee. Okay, should we go and take back over control of the aircraft? So you can see the airfield directly in front of us. So, before we do take over, let's have a look at the wind. Should we find out the wind on the ground? So 366 knots, and seems to be consistent as well, which is nice for a change. So we can come straight in. Tracking on. I need to get one of the shipping add-ons, don't I? Because the sea always looks very empty. Obviously with the shipping add-ons it will be full of commercial traffic and day pleasure boats and all sorts of things. Maybe I'll do a video about that soon. Various shipping add-ons. So before we go into the airport, should we go and have a little look at this coast along here, because there are some small towns as a settlement, obviously. So what's it called? Stories Beach and Shelter Point. So I'll move the mouse out of the way. endeavour to have a look at some of these areas. So this is Stories Beach. Comes up to Shelter Point. Here, I guess. Ocean Grove. We'll cut back across in a moment. We'll fly over the top of Ocean Grove and sweep back in for the approach into Campbell River. So, just looking at the live stream comments, which server am I on? West USA, I believe. Let me just check that. I'll have to pause the sim to do it, won't I? Let's have a quick look. West USA. Close, resume, there we go. So, and obviously you can see where I am, just approaching Campbell River on Vancouver Island. So we're going to turn back in towards the airport. You can see the beacon flashing above the tree line. Very cool. So if we fly straight for that, then we can loop around back in for the runway. Open the engine back up. Apologies for the screen moving around. If I lift a coffee mug up to my face, the Tobii eye tracker has a bit of a turn. So what we'll do is fly across the runway direction perpendicular to it. We only need about 50 yards in this aeroplane to do a touch and go. Well, not more than 50 yards, 150 yards maybe, but you know what I mean. We don't need a 6,000 foot runway. So we've got crosswind, looking at the windsock from right to left. So what you can do is just point the aeroplane down the runway. Notice as I did that I lost lift. But yeah, I think the side slip crosswind technique is by far the best, but it's a lot easier if you've got proper rudder pedals, and I haven't. I'm having to be really careful with the twist grip to do that. Okay, so 27 miles. Sorry, 271 degrees, 54 miles over to Woss. So, should we set it up on the autopilot? So 271. So let's just trim this out a second. So we're going pretty much the right direction. Should we pull up the Windows, open, default? Just want to see what the... Oh yeah, we do need some altitude then. So on this leg we need to get to 5,000 feet again. 6,000 if you want 1,000's leeway. So we'll go and do that. So yeah, we just reading Mike Coffey's comment. We started in the Cessna 140, but started to grow an aversion to the sound of biscuit tins. So and travelling at 105 knots everywhere. Although this isn't much quicker, to be honest. But this is a lot easier on the ear. A lot easier. So we're just climbing out. Good point actually, because we programmed a route in, can we see it on the built-in map? Yes, we can. I mean, it's only a... I hate this map, by the way. I don't know why they've ever bothered with it. It's pretty awful. Just see Phil G's comment there. Thank you very much. Okay, so on our way across the hills, there's Vernon Lake over here, but there really aren't many other points of interest on the way to Woss. It's just going to be admire the scenery in a few minutes. I guess we could go cross country. I'm just looking at various routes through the hills rather than straight lining it. Well, we're close to the GPS. Oh, we're getting slow. I'm going to push the engine on a bit and reduce the climb rate. We've got plenty of time before we need to be at the altitude. We've got another 1,000 feet to climb. But yeah, we need to get up above 100 knots really. You can see this is where the dangerous bits are. We're just about to come past this lake, but it's a hell of a detour, isn't it, to go off down here, go to Gold River and then fly up through the valley to Woss. It's easier to go straight across, I guess. So if we go and put this onto nav mode, I wonder if it will fit close enough to the line to pick it up. Yes, we are. Look, we've picked up the GPS line straight away, so we're almost on it. So it captured it. Very cool. Do is put this back on minimal so you can see where we are. Oh, I've just run out of fuel in the left tank, haven't I? Oh, that's quite amusing, really. Well, not amusing if it was real, because we'd now be in enormous amounts of trouble. So I need to turn off the autopilot for a moment. Oh, it was on the centre tank, that was it. So we need to start the engine again. So where's the starter? At least we've got plenty of height to figure this out. What's this doing? We only need 500 feet a minute. It's going to kill itself otherwise. Just narrowly averted disaster, so that's fine. Which Payware twin turbine would you recommend? The black square King Air. It's an easy one. Russell saying wanted me to do an engine out landing. Yeah, right. Well, we could have looked though. There's plenty of places around here. Look, they're saying that there's trees dotted around, but I mean, there's a huge expanse down there. Look, and over there. It would have been quite straightforward, wouldn't it? Or we could do it. Was it Trent Palmer? Was that the name of the YouTuber guy that I've forgotten his name? We could have just, you know, jumped out of the window immediately. So, oh no, I've run out of fuel. This aeroplane is no longer serviceable. Let's jump out. And get the fire extinguisher from my sock that just happens to be there. Yeah, I was going to say, just looking at the comments there, the Beaver could land anywhere, really. Any of these empty patches, even though there are trees dotted around, it wouldn't be much of a stretch. Yeah, there's lots of space down here. Even here, look, there's enough of a straight line you can find. Although you'd have to factor in the wind as well. Whoa, look at these hills. I'm just going to go and have a look at this. The engine doesn't sound very healthy. Oh, of course we're of course it isn't. Hey, we've carried on climbing it. What's going on? That was not what we asked the autopilot to do. It was armed as well on the altitude, and it's climbed straight through it. So let's come back down. So obviously the mixture is wrong. It should be a bit healthier now, and it is. Did you hear that in the YouTube stream? It sounded rough as anything. I just realised we've carried on climbing, hadn't we? We're up at 7,000 feet and we were on a fully rich mixture. So no wonder it sounded ill. So let's bring it back down to 6,000, wasn't it? Was our initial. So we'll arm that and come back down at 1,000 feet a minute and keep an eye on the airspeed now, because this is going to accelerate. In the real world, to recover from that, we'd probably have to lean it completely out. and run it at high revs for a while to clean up the engine. Well, we already are. We've got the throttle against the stops. We're at that interesting point with the engine where we are altitude limited in terms of, yeah, so we can't over rev it. It's an interesting one. There's a crossover point in altitude where the air pressure limits the amount of manifold pressure rather than you opening the throttle any further. I forget what the exact term is they use for it. Was it Trevor Jacob that jumped out of the plane? Yeah, I couldn't remember his name. So Trent Palmer is the guy that's got the kit fox that got done for landing on a friend's field, wasn't it? Being nosy now, having a look around the landscape around us. There's a huge range of hills over there, look. So that's the waterway between, yeah, between mainland Canada and Vancouver Island. So we've got quite a strong crosswind. We're going to have to cross through these hills. Density altitude, that's it. Thanks, Alpha Indigo. I couldn't think, I went completely blank then. I couldn't think what the proper term was, where you get that crossover point. These mountains, this part of Vancouver Island, it just terrifies me because, yeah, if you did have an engine out over the hills we're about to cross over, you'd be in trouble. We could simulate it for a bit of fun, couldn't we? See how we might handle it. I guess the trouble is you've got no idea of the wind inside the valleys. So you'd have to guess the way the wind might be being funneled. You know, to pick a final approach. And again, in the real world, you might not have a GPS map to help you out in the same way that we have got. Let's go back onto nav mode. There's a deep disparity, isn't there, between... Oh, it's off to the... It's still on nav, but it's left the course. It's interesting. Shall we press numlock and go to head tracking? Need to centre it up, don't I? There we go. It's pretty scary, isn't it? Some big hills. I mean, we could have a play at simulating an engine out and go and glide down into into the bottom of the valley. Might be good fun actually. But even so, down here, look, you wouldn't have much of a problem getting down in this aeroplane. So even if we look out, well, if we don't look outside and we only look from the cabin to see what we can see, which makes it a bit more realistic, you'd be immediately looking for anywhere flat, wouldn't you? In the bottom of the valley. So you're looking for riverbanks, ideally, and following that, quite a bit of road. But roads without tree lines, so this road down here is looking like a good candidate. It's fairly straight. In fact, is that the river or is that the road, sorry, or is that a river? It's hard to tell in the simulator sometimes. Let's put our head through the wall. Of course we can zoom, can't we? I keep forgetting that. If we're going to have to force a landing, we'd be looking for one of these stretches, but obviously one like the one over there, maybe, although that's got water in it, hasn't it? Could probably glide as far as over there, and then they've got a bit of a clearing. What about in the next valley? Yeah, that's more difficult. This side's preferable. I don't know if we could glide that far. But yeah, definitely. By the time you get down there, it's probably not as bad as it looks being tree lined. There probably are some bits of although it's not a very straight line, is it? The trouble is, I guess, in the real world, you're going to have boulders and stuff alongside the stream. You're not going to be able to land on it like you would in the simulator. So maybe we won't simulate that, hey? We'll just admire the views and the hills as they go whistling past underneath. Lakes in the hollow there. They're amazing, aren't they? Look at this bowl. Stunning, isn't it? It's difficult to get a sense of scale, isn't it, until you see these tiny little fir trees. And then see that vertical drop into that bowl down there, and the scree slope. It's incredible. So it's basically a several 1,000-foot drop down into the bottom of there. I have to keep an eye where we're going, didn't I? Make sure we clear this ridge. on the hills are amazing, aren't they? Okay, so how are we doing in terms of the map? This is supposed to be in nav mode, and it's slowly losing the route. I think it's gone wrong, so we're going to take over manually. So it should be, looking at this spit of land here, which is this, it should be over there somewhere. It's probably it that we can see right there, but we'll wait until we get a bit closer to confirm. Maybe it makes more sense to actually go into that valley and fly along the valley and start descending. Keep an eye on the airspeed. So 845 Sim is saying, what setting gives you reflections? I'm not sure. I'm running in Ultra, so whether that has a bearing on it, it's probably deep in the various things you can switch on and off. So we're at 4,300 feet and descending about, what is it, 150 knots-ish. And according to this, 7 miles to run until we get to the next airfield. Which I'm guessing is the one that we can see right there. That we could see from miles away. After Woss, we go over to a couple of airfields, one after another, quite short legs, to keep keep an eye on the fuel now, didn't I, after our mishap earlier. Thankfully we ran the tank dry at altitude. So yeah, you can see here, look, we run the centre tank completely empty. So we're running the front tank at the moment. We'll switch over to rear actually. Should we do that now? Okay, so wind on the ground at Woss. 320, 10 knots, gusting 18. Okay, we're going to have fun and games. So we are coming in from the right direction for the wind, but we're just going to have to be careful. Let's see about coming in along this river, shall we? So if we side slip it in into this gully. We can have some fun on the way in then, can't we, flying along it? So, fully rich again. Hey, there's a bridge. Can we fit under it is the question. Oh, it's a bit tight, isn't it? And there's a corner and there's trees. It's got to be done now. And there's a hilly piece of water because the landscape isn't done very well. Trying to get visuals on the runway again. How far away was it? We have lost the airfield. So further to the left. We're right over it, aren't we? Time to circle. There it is. So I'm just going to do a left circuit round and then we'll come in. So flaps to the first stage. It's very pretty out here, isn't it? Okay, so we need to go over the top of that hill. So this is going to be a bit of a climbing exercise. We may have to circle, I guess, or go further down the valley first. Would be easier, wouldn't it? Go along a little bit and then turn right. What sort of climb rate can we get away with in the Beaver? Without having the pilot operating handbook to hand, I'm not sure what the best speed climb rate for QNH is. It's one of those things you would learn on the real plane if you flew over hundreds of hours. Fine, look, we're holding on to about 95 knots at about 1500 feet a minute or thereabouts. Whoa, turbulence. Of course there's going to be wind, because the wind's coming from the north. It's coming over the top of the... Whoa. It's coming over the top of the hill and going down. So that's why we had a near stall then. So if you imagine, the wind is tumbling over here and coming down the leeward side of the hill. So you can get it force you into the ground if you're not careful. Fine, because we're out in the airflow. It's coming straight at us down the valley. So the lake we're just approaching is Bonanza Lake. Very cool. I'd love to know the history of how these various places got their names. Places we're looking at across there is this big, I guess it's a floodplain of some description in between the hills. So we're back up to 4,000 feet, so we need to lean the engine out. Turbulence is pretty wicked, isn't it? It's thrown around. So yeah, I'm just reading the comments about Russell said, yeah, so there'll be endless tables, wouldn't there, in the pilot operating handbook, giving you best rate with a nice graph with a parabolic curve across it. Usually figured out by some hapless test pilot who had to spend weeks flying profiles accurately and measuring all the numbers. It's a bit of test flying you never hear about, isn't it? coming up to several airports in quick succession, which should make for some more fun and games. We're doing just under 5,000 feet and descending. Look at that turbulence. It's pretty wicked, isn't it? So LittleNavMap will tell us, yeah, we've got 20 knot headwind, 28 knots. It's gusting. Oh my word. That's why we're getting sudden gusts. You know, the lift is, the high speed wind is obviously increasing lift and lifting the nose. So just out of interest then, although it's fast here, what's the wind doing on Alert Bay? 15 knots, 330 degrees. So we can come in 2.7, but it might be a bit dodgy. See what happens when we get there. So someone says, is this one realistic turbulence? Yes, it is. The only thing I have switched off is crash damage, because I do group flights so often, and it kind of ruins a group flight if you have to go and reload for whatever reason. But usually I tend to fly fairly sensibly anyway, apart from when we're doing spin testing. Straighten it up. Okay. Oh, look at the weather over the other side of the bay. Fantastic. Oh, makes you want to fly in that direction, doesn't it? To go and see it. I bet some of those valleys are spectacular. So we're just approaching Alert Bay, so we can see the airfield on this closest edge. So on the way we'll go over Beaver Cove and Telegraph Cove and Englewood. So just in this inlet here. So the runway is over there, you can see it from here, it's pretty obvious. Okay, so descending down. Pretty much be hugging the coast for the rest of the way in to Port Hardy. Okay, let's have a look. just for a bit of interest, let's go and have a look down. So this is that, yeah, several little, there's actually some moorings down there, aren't there, in the little inlet. Some more back over there, look, and some more there, and another one, yeah. So it's more, actually more populous than it looks. And there's the airfield we're heading for. Alert Bay. So this could be quite dangerous. So I'm going to go back to fully rich. I'm not going to come off the throttle too much, because we're going to be going into the wind, remember. So our ground speed is going to be nothing like our indicated airspeed. So just need to keep mindful of that. Maybe play games with side slipping it to point the aeroplane along the runway if it really is that strong a wind when we get there. See if we get pushed sideways. I'm going to do this without flaps. To be honest, it's tracking pretty straight at the moment. We're not really having to... Maybe the wind is just swirling around. Whoa, turbulence. Yeah, the wind's straight down the runway. Look at the windsock. It's quite nice when you get a situation like that, isn't it? Okay, so we're flying just along the coast a little way to Port McNeil. So how's the fuel doing? So front is sloshing around. Could probably do with putting it on the front. Help if I held the aeroplane level while we're looking at it. Yeah, we're going to put it on the front again. It helps if you don't do that too slowly. Just starve the engine. Okay. So for the wind we want runway 29, I guess. So we're going to dogleg across here. And then have a look out the window and see if we can spot the airfield. There it is. Is that the runway we want now? No, it isn't. It's a job to see the runways here, isn't it? We want this one for the wind. Again, given the wind speeds, I'm going to not use flaps. And get ready for the turbulence when we get near the tree line. Floating on the wind. It's quite cool when it does that, isn't it? As soon as we put some thrust over it, look, just lifts straight back into the air like a kite. Okay, so which way next? Final leg. Last few miles over to Port Hardy. Weather. Look at the mist across the hills over there. It's fantastic, isn't it? Okay, so you can already see the lights of the runway in the distance. It's a much bigger airport. That's our destination for today. From outside. Okay, so where's the crew gone? Interesting. We have the Marie Celeste of the aircraft world, apparently. It's quite amusing. The the aeroplane at the moment is just quite happily chugging along. I haven't got the autopilot on, I've just trimmed it out. It's just gaining a little bit of lift now. It's about to drop and lose it again. It's quite happily just flying into the wind, I think. It's quite amusing, really. Okay, so this is Port Hardy that we are approaching. Let's have a look on the map. So for the wind, we want runway 29, which is the big runway. We won't land until late, otherwise we have a long taxi. So we'll land late on runway 29 on purpose. So from the angle we're coming in, yeah, we need to just double back a little bit. Okay, so this is the end of our journey, ladies and gentlemen. The end of our exploration from one end to the other of Vancouver Island. It took us 2 evenings to do it. Two evenings for me, it's middle of the day in Canada, obviously. Obviously we have no business arriving at a big airport like this in a tiny little airplane like this. Just for a bit of fun, should we fly along the tree line on the way in? See if we can see the waves, because it's windy today. You get to see the waves breaking, which is always lovely. Always looks great in the simulator. Sim's having a real problem, isn't it? It's loading the assets for the airport. That's what it was stuttering about with. So we're going to land down the far end of the runway. Again, we're not going to need flaps because of the wind speed. Still trying to fly, look, we're 3-pointed, but the stall warning's going off because of the wind speed. That's quite amusing. Yeah, the wing clears over the top of the RV-14 that was parked there. Oh, it's a Booker Youngman. We were just talking about those earlier today. Is that the 182? I can never quite tell them apart. Go and park next to him, shall we? Okay. Parking brake on. Kill the engine. Oops. Alternator off. Main battery switch off. Fuel selector off. Ignition off. I think we're good to go. And we have a fellow aviator. So who was this? Oh, it's just not going to show the name label while he's too close. And it's obviously, I've switched it to show not the accurate aircraft for multiplayer, so it doesn't eat the RAM too much. So everybody's a Mooney for that reason. Yeah, I think that is a 182 RG over there, isn't it? Okay. Hopefully you enjoyed that. And I'll see you again soon. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you enjoyed watching this. And keep an eye out for the channel for more videos in the future. Okay, I'm going to stop the live stream there.